In this video, we are going to talk about how my property portal handles the tenant deposit. This is Jahangir Alam. I am one of the business development officer at my property portal, and our discussion topic today would be what type of deposit that we are handling in our portal, the differences between the security deposit versus last month rent, and we're going to talk about who can deposit, who can hold this deposit money, and how we are logging this deposit money in our system, and how to adjust it when tenant leaves the tenancy, right? So the types of deposit, there are three types of deposit that you are logging into the system. One is a security deposit, key deposit, and the pet deposit. Okay. Security deposit, it's depending on which province are you in. It's called differently. So for example, it's well, I shouldn't say it's called differently. In for example, in Ontario, there is no concept of security deposit, right? You legally, you cannot have a security deposit. You cannot collect security deposit. But on the other hand, other provinces have that security deposit concept, and security deposit is collected at the beginning of the tenancy, and that security deposit could be used to offset any kind of damage that's done by the tenant. But in our portal, we have made the LMR, which is the last month rent, and the security deposit. It's same for the sake of functionality, simplicity of the functionality. Okay. So who can hold the deposit? So deposit, it's a liability, and at times it could be a lot of money, right? So in many cases, the property manager does not want to hold this money onto themselves, right? Because that's a liability. They don't like to keep it. Sometimes the owner wants to keep that money. That's an extra cash for a extended period of time, so they want to keep that. In either way, there are two options. So either you as a property manager keep that, or you can collect the money or pass it on to the tenant, or tenant can kind of collect the money by themselves. All right. So with the security money, there are actually four different scenarios that you can think of, right? One with the new tenant, one with the existing tenant. So with the new tenant, same scenario, like two scenarios. One is that you collect the money and you keep it as a property manager. So that means you are liable to return the money when the tenancy ends. The other option is you collect the money and you give it to the owner, right? That's two options, and similar options for existing tenant. So existing tenant, right? So you are onboarding, you just got the business of like 15 units, and all are tenanted, and these are existing tenant. So you are onboarding those tenants in our system. So you probably do not have the security deposit. Maybe the tenant gave it to the owner, right, at when it was with the previous property manager. That means you do not have security deposit. You don't see that, but you have to log that information into the system so that there is a track that yes, there is a deposit that is the end owner is holding that money, right? Because for to the tenant, they know that they have given the security deposit. They don't care that the property manager has changed, right? So because you are a new property manager for the building, you need to keep track that there is a deposit given by the tenant, right? And our system handles that. The other scenario is that the previous property manager gave you the money. Now you are holding that money, so which means you are liable, which falls under the second point in this slide. How do we log in our system. So there are two ways. One is that when you're creating the lease or you creating the tenant, it's will give you an option to enter the deposit information and the date information. Okay, and at the end of the lease process, you also get to choose who is holding the money, right? And then at that time you can decide, okay, yep, this is going to the tenant or you are keeping it. And you also get an option to choose a bank account, so that, like, maybe you want to keep all of your liability in a different bank account so that it doesn't get mixed up with all the rent amount, income, and expenses. Many client prefers to do that, and we have accommodated that options as well. The second scenario is that, okay, so the tenant, you created the lease, now the tenant is active, but you did not collect the deposit money as of now or after the tenant moved in. So you can still log that information in our system. So we have in the tenant details page, you get to choose, you get to edit the tenant, the deposit information, and you can apply the amount and the date at that time. Okay. Now, the last month rent. How do we adjust, or the security deposit? How do we adjust this last month rent or security deposit when the tenant is leaving? Right? So tenant could leave after 1 year. They could leave probably after 10 years. Right? In either case, you have to adjust the money that you have collected at the beginning of the tenancy. Right. So in Ontario, it's a straightforward. It's kind of, you are saying that, okay, so this will be covered for your last month rent, right? So you, and our system generates rental invoices, and you get to adjust the last month rent with the last month invoice. Okay. On the other hand, security deposit. So for other provinces where they have the security deposit, so what they would do, they would collect the last month rent as is, in a regular way, but then they will either have the option to assess, and if there's any damage has been done by the tenant, then they will be creating an invoice for the tenant, and then for that invoice they can adjust the security deposit amount, right? So for example, the security deposit $1,000. Now there was a $200 damage for cleaning the carpet. Now, as a property manager, you'll be creating a invoice for the tenant, and then when you create the invoice, then you get the option to adjust that invoice amount with the security deposit. So once you do that, then your security liability will be reduced. So that's how you can adjust. So now the other thing is, once the security deposits, you still have the $800 left, right? So your option is either you can refund the money to the owner, or you can refund it to the tenant. So now that's the high level overview of the security deposit and how we're gonna adjust it in our system. Now I am going to show you the demo how we actually do that in the system. Section of the admin portal, and in the tenant section, as you can see, you have two modules. One is the tenant and one is the tenant lease. So depending where you are, if you are creating a new tenant or existing tenant, ultimately you have to go through the same process of creating a new lease, right? So, and that's how it is because our system needs to know all the information to run like, create different things behind the scene for that new tenant in our system. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a new lease, And when you do that, obviously you provide some information. In this case, let's go with this property, and this is the unit, and I'm just going to go I'm going to go through quickly. My goal is to show you how the deposit works. So this guy coming in, I have all these things filled in. Let's go next, next. And here we are defining the term, lease term. And then here is the deposit section. Okay, so depending on which province are you in, this steps might be different for you. For Ontario, it's 8 steps, but for Alberta or British Columbia, it might be 6 or 7. Okay. And if it's a custom lease, then obviously the steps might be less, right? For Alberta, we have a custom lease integration option as well. Now, in deposit section, as you can see, as you said, like there are key deposit option, and you have the option to the rent deposit option, right? Now, this rent deposit is actually considered as a security deposit as well, right? So in this case, we are calling this rent deposit, but for other provinces, this is the security deposit. So here I can say that I am going to collect $1,000 as a security deposit. Okay, but I did not get the money yet, right? So I'm creating it today at which is June 9th, and I did not get the money. So what I can do is I can leave this deposit date blank at this moment. I can do the same thing for lease key deposit, and I can say that, yep, I got $100 key deposit and I did not get the money yet. So let's go next. And I go next again, next, and go next. So when I'm creating this lease, obviously I go through all these steps and I click submit. Yes, creating the lease now. It's going to take a few seconds. Yes, lease has to be approved. And just going to take a second. So ideally, there'll be a separate video on the whole lease process, but for now, we're just quickly going through this deposit demonstration. Okay, so I'm going to say mark that yes, we have collected the signature. We have collected the marked process as well. And when I try to create the tenant, right now, it's giving me an option. Hey, the lease is signed. Everything is good. Like it's a valid document now. But did you get the money? So now see this, we went through very quickly, but this might not happen. This activation might not happen for a couple months. So think about like if you are, signing up this lease for a student, right? Maybe the student applied in April. Now you are creating the tenant profile in August, end of August. So that's been 3 months. So now the system is asking, hey, did you get the money? Right? So you can still say, no, I did not get the money. And so it will just keep it, it will keep it as this. And if I have received the money, right? And then the system, I can say that, yes, I got the money today. And this is, I am going to hold on to this amount, or I will pass it on to the owner. Now, remember, there are 4 scenarios, right? If you say that, yes, this is an existing tenant, we got the money. We actually did not get the money. Owner has the money, and we are just saying that, okay, we are just logging this into the system, right? Nothing else. Then we don't need to show this $1,000 in the owner report, if that's the case, which is the step number 4 in our slideshow, if you remember. Okay, so right? So owner has the deposit, which is this, sorry, it's a step number 3. So owner has the deposit. PM never saw the money, however, need to track that tenant, the LMR in the system. So in this case, you have to choose this option. exclude from the owner payout. The reason is that if you don't check this option, that means the system will think that you have the money, but you are going to give this money to the owner, and that will show up as a payout in the owner report. So owner will say, oh yeah, what is I supposed to get this $1,000? Where is my money? Right? So, but if you don't want to show it in the owner report, then you can click on this. Is because you never saw the money, because this is an existing tenant and owner already has the money. By checking this box, system will treat that's you're just logging the information into the system. Okay. Now, if you say that nope, I am going to hold the money, that means again it's not going to show up in the R&D, which is the rent and disbursement report. It could be some people say it's owner report. Then it will show up in your book, but not in owner's in the owner statement. Okay, and optionally you can choose where you want to collect the money, right? Again, depending on the province, depending on your business model, you can choose the way you like to handle this money. So many property managers, especially from the West, they don't like to keep the security deposit with the same as where the rent is coming up or rent is coming in. So in that case, what they do, they have different chart of accounts, which is the asset accounts, and they can say, no, all the security deposit will go to this RBC checking account, right? And then system will put this money in that bank account. Similar option for key deposit, and then you just save it. Once you submit it, then it will be saved in the tenant profile. Remember, we are moving the tenant lease information to the tenant information because we are activating the tenant profile. Okay, so once you submit that, this information will be moved over to the active tenant portal. So I am going to cancel on this one because I'm going to show it to show this the same thing with an existing tenant that I have. Okay, so I'm going to cancel that. So let's go to the tenant section, and I have lots of active tenant that I can utilize to show you this demo. So for example, this number 3, Arlen, right? So let's go into Arlen's profile. Now I see that Arlen does not have any deposit. It's $100. It has a deposit, $100, and it says it's collected. That means that it's been collected, and then it shows that it's a PM is holding this money, and nothing's been adjusted because he's an active tenant. He's not moving out, and nothing has been returned. Right? That's the rental or security deposit, and you can see the transaction, how the transaction looks like in the actual transaction in actual accounting book. Okay, this is the helpful information for the accountant. Now, what if that I don't have a key deposit? I did not get the key deposit at that time. Now it's time to get the money for this key deposit, and you got it today, hypothetically. So what you can do is we can click on this, and we can say that, yep, we got the money for key deposit, which is $100, and we got it today. And we are going to pass this information to the owner. Okay, and we are going to say that exclude from the owner report, and then update. If you do this, what will happen? It says that okay, $100, it's collected, and we can check the statements or the transactions, how the transactions been laid out in the bookkeeping. Okay, so now we decided that okay, this money will show up in the owner statement, right? Because it's logged in today, and owner should basically see this information in the R&D report for this month. So now I'll go to the owner disbursement report for this property for this month when we logged that information. So let's go to accounting, owner's payout, disbursement report. And for May in 542 Rod Avenue, if I view the report, then I would say that this $100 tenant deposit, it came in the month of May. And as you can see, the deposit was logged on June 9th. And this statement is from May 11th to June 9th. So June 9th falls within this month, and that's why this deposit information now shows up in the owner report, right? So this is the way to give the money to give the deposit money to the owner. So if you click on, you check this balance, and you'll see that this $100 is basically included in the owner payout. Okay, I hope this makes sense. So our last discussion point regarding security deposit is that how do we handle security deposit in my property portal? So to show you that, I'm going to take you to the same tenant profile that's been dealing with, Arlen. And I see that Arlen has a $100 deposit from the security deposit, and a key deposit is $100, right? And let's assume that Arlen is moving out this month, and we have his invoice, which is the first one in this case, May 21st. The invoice was generated, which is the month, which is for month of June. So now that's we see that the total invoice amount is 900, and then there's a current due of $800. All right, so let's go inside. And if we go inside, then we see the whole details, and we also see that there was a payment of $100 from the tenant credit that was adjusted before. And now we want to adjust this rental amount, which is $900 from the security deposit. So we only have a $200 security deposit in total, and one from the key deposit and one from the regular security deposit, or it could be the last month rent. Okay, so in either way, the system identified that there are two types of deposit, and it's showing you option to adjust from these two. So in this case, we are going to adjust this from $100. As you can see, it's also giving you a highlight that the deposit amount is $100. So if you click on it, then it also fills in the information that's needs to be filled in, right? So now it's up to you if you want to use the whole $100, or if you want just you can make it $50, right? But in this case, I'm going to adjust the whole amount from the security deposit. So if we get a record payment, now this income is now going against for this invoice. So now the invoice amount, the current due amount is 700 instead of 800. Okay, and there's a log that on June 10th a payment was adjusted, $100 was adjusted from the deposit amount. So how about the key deposit? Now, if I click on the more actions, now I don't see the security deposit option anymore. Now I have the option to adjust from the key deposit, right? And I can do the same thing, and I can adjust this amount as well. So I'm not going to do that. So I'll just leave this open. And now I have this in the rest of the money now tenant has to pay the way they regularly pay. So either they will be paying through online payment, or if they give you the money with a paycheck, a check or something, you can just log it as a normal way. Okay, and then this this invoice will be adjusted. The last month rent or security deposit has been adjusted for this invoice. Now, I was showing you with this with the rental invoice. The similar thing you can do with a non-rental invoice. So non-rental invoice, as you know, if there is a damage deposit, damage was done by the tenant, so you can create a um, invoice for that damage to the tenant and then adjust from the rental invoice. So that after once you do that, then there could be a scenario where you will have extra money in that security deposit. So once you have that extra money, the thing that you can do is either you can give it to the owner that or you can refund it to the tenant. I hope this is helpful, and we'll see you in the next video. Thank you very much.